On the next Lifestyle magazine, attention deficit disorder and the drug Ritalin. The controversy heats up.
This is Hello Channel.
ADD, ADHD, and Ritalin have quickly become hot issues in schools, doctors' offices, and homes across the country. At an alarming rate, our children are being diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. And the drug du jour for the treatment of ADD is Ritalin, a member of the amphetamine family. In 1998 alone, around 5 million people in America were prescribed this drug, and Americans use about 85% of the world's Ritalin supply. In a moment, Clifton Davis, Patty Cabrera, and today's guests look at both sides of this Ritalin issue. I'm Dan Matthews, and this is Lifestyle Magazine.
Welcome, everyone. Dr. Lawrence Diller is a behavioral pediatrician and author of the book Running on Ritalin. He's one of the leading experts on the treatment of ADD, which stands for Attention Deficit Disorder, and the use of Ritalin, and we're very, very happy he's here. Dr. Diller, how can we determine if our children have ADD or if they're just have a discipline problem?
Well, unfortunately, there's no test. There's no biological test. There's no blood test, no brain scan, not even a paper and pencil task that you can take that definitively makes a diagnosis of ADD. Therefore, it really comes down to the opinions of the evaluator. And that depends, and that's one of my points in running on Ritalin, it really often depends on whom you go to see as to whether or not your son simply is struggling a little bit, or I say maybe a Tom Sawyer type, or indeed has a more serious problem that stems from his personality or his brain.
Well, we see that America, we read, is the highest user of Ritalin. What does that say about our society?
Well, that's complex, and in a word, we use 85% of the world's Ritalin. And
that's pretty much most of it.
Well, right, and really North America, Canada is the only country that comes close to our use. They use half of ours. And I think it's telling us something about the way we view children's problems in general and how we decide to treat them. And the notion that ADD is a brain disorder says that this problem must be coming from the children's brain and must be treated with a drug or a chemical. And I see it actually more as an issue of questions of performance, that our performance demands on children have increased while the supports for them and their families and schools have decreased.
You think it's because sometimes our children are stressed out because of peer pressure or because of family problems that they may evidence something that resembles ADD?
Well, I should say, first of all, there's probably a core group of children, maybe 1/10, I would guess, of the number being treated, that I don't care what environment they'd be in, they'd be struggling. But the much larger group may become symptomatic and come to the attention of a doctor, possibly because both parents have to work, possibly because we expect more from our children at earlier grades, possibly because classroom size has increased.
It seems as if we are so easily say, well, Ritalin as a solution, instead of maybe the old-fashioned traditional discipline.
Well, I want to be kind to the families that are struggling with these problems. I'm not disagreeing with you, but too often this winds up sounding like parent blaming or teacher blaming, and Lord knows many of these children are hard to raise. That said, I think one of the things that distinguishes our country from many other countries is the way we treat children at an early age, and maybe we tend to give them more freedoms, and yet at the same time, we expect them to conform at school.
Too much pressure?
Well, it's this mixed message. We want people, America, we want people to express themselves, and, we believe in spontaneity and independence. In other countries like Japan, where the rates are 1/10 to 1/50th hours, they expect children to conform at an early age. The group adherence is more important. Here, once they get to school, they have to, sit there like this.
So do we as a society find a problem and throw a pill at it?
Well, I think most parents who have come to this conclusion about medicating their child, don't do it without a great deal of ambivalence.
Of course.
That said, many families who come to me feel like they've already tried everything, and we're talking sometimes as children as young 3, 4, and 5, and they are ready to use the pill right away. And I say, hey, wait a second. Let's take a closer look at the parenting here, or let's make sure the expectations are reasonable for this child.
What do we know about Ritalin?
We know a lot about Ritalin. Ritalin or dexedrine has been around for 60 years. We know that it's relatively safe for use in children, though we can't say the same for adults and teenagers because of the risk of abuse. It is a drug like amphetamine or cocaine that can be abused.
Long-term?
Long-term safety.
Effects?
The good news is it doesn't seem to have any dangerous effects when used in childhood. The bad news is it doesn't seem to make any long-term differences if a child uses it in childhood. It does make a difference on the short term. Anyone, child or adult, ADD or not, will improve their performance taking the drug.
When we come back, I really want to talk to you and the families about how one sees, well, how one sees treating a child with attention deficit disorder with essentially an upper, okay?
Sure.
Because it seems to me that ADD would evidence itself by a kid who's pretty much bouncing off the walls or just not being able to focus.
Not necessarily these days, and that's a big confusion.
We're going to talk about that. When we come back, we'll meet a family who was told that their child may have ADD, and they challenged the notion and consulted Dr. Diller. And their story right after this.
Looking for a brighter future? Learn English and make it happen on Hello Channel.
Brandon Davis is 7 years old. Earlier this year, his parents, Scott and Katie, were told by Brandon's first grade teacher that they should have Brandon evaluated for ADD because he was out of control in the classroom. His parents were skeptical, decided to visit Dr. Diller. Welcome. Katie, I guess I should ask you. He wasn't out of control around the house, was he?
Well, no, I wouldn't describe him that way.
No, you're a mother.
Yeah.
How would you describe his behavior?
Well, I would say a typical 6-year-old at home. You know, you may have to ask him a couple times to do something, but I don't think that's anything unusual.
Nothing out of the norm.
No.
Yeah. Were you surprised by the teacher's analysis or recommendation?
Absolutely astounded.
What was her definition of out of control? What was he exhibiting?
Well, I don't know if it was out of control that she used. It was more that he was in his own world, not with the rest of it, the rest of the world in the classroom.
Sounds like a leader.
Yeah. Brandon, you look okay to me. You feel okay? Yeah. You're fine. Did you feel that you were a little out of control in class, Brandon? Not really, huh?
Nope.
You're just trying to do your work, huh? Scott, how did you feel about that analysis?
I think she was more in tone that he wasn't with, as she put it, with her. As she's teaching a classroom, you know, all the kids are sitting there with their eyes just gazing upon her, and Brandon was kind of just...
Somewhere else.
Yeah.
Not gazing upon
Well,
her.
every child has a different learning style, so maybe it was, you know.
See, the mama in you started to
I know.
defend that
That's
baby.
right. That's
Go
right.
ahead, wrap your arms around.
I'm going to.
Well, I just want to know, what did you do when you had evaluation recommended to you? What did you do?
Well, we told her that we would like to do everything on our end to help, and that we would get him evaluated because she requested us to, but that we didn't feel that was the direction that we would really be going in, and that we would rather work with him on a daily basis on behavior modification, as you might say. And
You went to see Dr.
so
Diller?
we did. He was recommended to us by Scott's sister, who's a marriage and family counselor, and he was well known in the community and I believe across the country for the subject of ADD, and so we felt he would be the best.
So what was your evaluation, Dr. Diller?
With meeting Brandon and seeing what a capable student he was, and seeing how well his parents handled him within my setting, because we all met together and we talked and played, I had some serious questions, and I asked the teacher also how she was operating in her classroom, some of the things she used to keep the children on task and disciplined. And what I felt was she was relying a little bit too much on maybe the thinking approaches and not with the more immediacy of a reward or a consequence.
Tactile approaches.
She was no more that, you know, we need this complete in 15 minutes and then we'll move on to the next thing. Otherwise, you're stuck here. And she would say, she would try more, it's time, you know, I'm trying to think how she did it exactly, but she wasn't either forceful enough or immediate enough with her rewards, and sometimes a consequence too. And that was really where we steered her. Now, this is a very capable teacher, but she had gotten the feeling somehow that perhaps this boy had ADD.
How did you go about treating Brandon? How did you address the problem?
Well, I saw really how capable the family was, and really the main thing here was reinforcing their parenting style, which was they used a lot of humor, but they were also forceful when they needed to be.
Did you find that he had ADD?
No, I can't really say. Again, it's a matter of opinion. The teacher was concerned, and they came to a doctor who felt this was Tom Sawyer again on some level.
So did you finally prescribe Ritalin?
No, I never thought that Ritalin was going to be, but you can imagine how many parents hear this from a teacher. They go to another kind of evaluator who perhaps sees this kind of performance problem as a sign of ADD.
Well, that's good to know.
And it's often the easiest thing to do, too.
Well, up next, a mom who chose to use Ritalin for her child. We'll find out how well it worked in 2 minutes.
This is Hello Channel. Come learn English as you watch TV. It will change your life.
Paola.
Sí, mamá.
Ven acá, por favor.
I don't know how my mom knew, but I guess moms always know. I wasn't being very nice to one of the girls at school. I knew it was wrong. I knew I wasn't supposed to be mean. I guess I didn't think it was a big deal. But in one sentence, my mom helped me understand. She said, "Mija, you need to treat others the way you want to be treated." I thought about that a lot. I still do.
Life's most important lessons are best learned in the home. A message from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Sheila Bose's adopted son, Kevin, is 6 years old and is full of intensity. So much intensity, in fact, that Sheila and her husband, David, were overwhelmed at first by his personality. Well, after numerous complaints from Kevin's preschool about his behavior, they turned to Dr. Diller, who recommended they try Ritalin. Thank you for joining us, Sheila.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now, your son, Kevin, had a different kind of display than the last young man we spoke to. Tell us about your son.
If my son had been here, he would have been running all over the stage, for starters. He is a very intense little boy. If he found something that interests him, he'll be very interested in it, intensely interested. He'll be fiddling with it, he'll be playing with it, to the point where nothing could distract him from it.
And so, with that kind of intensive attention, why do they call it attention deficit?
It's a big problem. I think I should answer that.
Yeah.
The name of this problem keeps on changing. They used to call it hyperactivity. Now they call it attention deficit because of the kind of kid we just saw before, Brandon. That kid has become included under the rubric. What they call the holy trinity of ADD is inattention, distractibility, and impulsivity. However, some of these children, on things that they like, concentrate fine, and people say, well, how can they call it attention deficit disorder?
So give us some of the core features.
Well, the problem, we can talk about Kevin. The problem with Kevin is despite excellent parenting coming from Sheila, Sheila was that kind of parent who would be right on top of her kid with love, too, that Kevin still would have trouble sticking with things he was supposed to do and complying when it wasn't something that wasn't immediately rewarding to him. And so in this case, now it can sound like a bad boy too, but you didn't get that feeling from Kevin. You really got the feeling that this was something more internally driving him that had nothing to do with emotions. It's just very hard for him not impossible, but very hard for him to do things that weren't immediately rewarding.
Did Ritalin help?
Oh, it helped immensely. I was very reluctant to put him on Ritalin. It took us about 9 months after the diagnosis to start using Ritalin, but it made an immediate difference in his life, in our lives, in his school life.
In what way? What were the differences?
His ability, it seems like his ability to be in control of himself, to be more aware of his surroundings and the people who he was interacting with, to respond to them in a timely manner without 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 reminders to do things.
So it doesn't interpret it in a way of disobedience necessarily. You ask him to do something.
He just would not have the ability to, he'd be thinking about something else totally at the time, and he could hear you ask to do something and he will just not do it. And you'd think that's disobedience. It wasn't. He just couldn't focus on something else.
You know, I have a couple of kids, and, you know, as I was raising them, I would ask them to do things, and over they wouldn't do it. And finally, after years, they did, and I thought, that's growth. That's maturity.
And these kids do get better.
Yeah.
They do get better, but it's important, therefore, that in the midst of an ADD evaluation, that one time someone meet with the family. Because very often, the most useful thing the doctor can do is counsel the parents into taking a more immediate and firm stance with these children.
In 30 seconds or less, can you tell me why you chose Ritalin to prescribe for this child?
Because I saw for this individual's child, after working with the child and the family and the school, that this would ease this child's suffering. Yet on a bigger level, I have to worry as a citizen the amount of Ritalin we're using as a country.
Well, that's very important, and we're trying to talk about easing suffering. We still have more. Don't go away.
Hello. That's right, I said hello. I'm talking about an exciting new television channel that will change your life. My name is Ruth, and I want you to be one of the first to know about Hello Channel. Hello Channel is designed to teach you to speak English. Anyone can learn. We offer something for everyone. You'll see programming for children, teenagers, and adults, all on different levels. With Hello Channel, you'll hear, see, read, and speak English as you're watching entertaining television programs, making it easy to learn. If you've always wanted to learn English but haven't had a chance, Hello Channel is perfect for you. Start today, and remember, for a brighter future, just say hello.
Daddy's home.
Hey, come here, you. Oh.
Long day.
Oh, yeah.
So just relax tonight.
I can't. It's bowling night. I'll tell you what. If you could think of something really fun to do, I'll stay home tonight. Okay?
Okay.
Did you get that?
Oh, I'm not gonna make it tonight. It's a bad hair day, so.
Give your family everything.
Looking good.
Give them your time. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
And we're back, talking about ADD and Ritalin use. And Katie and Scott have rejoined us. Now, with your child, with Brandon, you opted not to use Ritalin. So you had some sort of alternative medication or treatment.
Well, no, we never even considered actually using medication on our son. That just wasn't an option in our mind. Mm-hmm. So we got the evaluation done for ADD just for the school to tell them that we're doing everything on our end. Now you need to do what you need to do on your end. And so behavior modification was done more through not giving him any excuses for not behaving properly or not doing things right away. It's the asking the once, maybe twice at most, and then, that's it.
So, Dr. Diller, What alternatives are there?
Well, these are often chronic problems of complex cause. And so people are attracted. You keep on asking me, well, what is this?
That's right, I want to know.
And everyone out there wants to know this also. But, you know, particularly people are interested in diet and herbal treatments and stuff like that. And unfortunately, virtually all of them have not been proven to be useful for the children like Kevin here. And we stick primarily with behavioral approaches along the line of what we do for Brandon. And then we rely on the stimulants primarily.
So behavior modification,
yes,
as well as sometimes
and
medication.
Making sure there's no learning problems, because that's very, very common here, and working closely with the school and the family.
Dr. Diller, ADD is supposedly a brain disorder. What about the neuropathology of it?
Well, there are tantalizing brain scans, and there are studies on genes that also link specific genes to this problem, but nothing is definitive yet. And remembering again that even a genetic condition is defined by the culture and the society. We expect more from children, and we're offering them less to their families and their schools. And this creates what I call more a living imbalance rather than a chemical one.
Pressure on kids, and maybe not allowing them to be kids.
Sometimes that would do it, huh, Patty? I want to ask one more question as we're going out here. What's the role of love? What role does love play?
My opinion is that you have to be incredibly more demonstrative of your love for the child in order to help, keep the child feeling good about themselves.
Katie, Scott?
I like the firm but fair approach, and be consistent. Yeah, it's just, letting them get away with murder, you just can't, it's unacceptable.
And love is important, but I'm not sure if love is enough when handling a more difficult temperament child.
Well, we'll be right back with the final word.
Learn English and have fun on Hello Channel.
A very challenging topic touching lots of us. And I really appreciate all of you being here to talk about it. Scott, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Is Brandon anything like Scott was at 6 or 7?
I think so, yes. I've been told so, at least.
So he's a great kid who's got a great future then, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Thank you.
Dr. Diller, we do have parents, though, who are at best devastated at what happens in their families, and at worst, they fear ultimate destruction. Hope for them.
Hope for them. Yes, I think that actually as the children get beyond the age of high school age, many more opportunities open up for them, and they can use their talents. They're not going to be having to sit there for 6 hours, and they can do much better.
So just remember that. There's hope for all of us if we'll take time to live together, and that's what a family needs to do. And that's what we try to show on Lifestyle Magazine. Thanks for being with us, and we'll be back here next time. Bye now.